Hey everybody, welcome to Mystifying Miracles. Glad you're here. Today our story is a really cool one. And a woman, she decides to listen to God on a whim as she's driving. And the end result, she ends up miraculously helping a family she did not know. I'm going to get into it. Stay tuned. One night, there was a woman, her name was Jennisa, and she lived in Los Angeles. She was just driving home like she normally does her normal route. And on this particular night, she had just left a very convicting sermon at church. The message happened to be about listening to God's voice. And Jennisa said it just lit a fire in her. She wanted so badly to be used by God whenever He called upon her. And so as she's driving that night on her way home in her car alone, she tells God, she says, Lord, I want to be that for you. And I really want to hear your voice. Well, it was immediately after that prayer, as she was talking to God, that she heard back. She actually felt Him say to her immediately afterwards, okay, exit right here, go to the store and buy milk. This shocked Jennisa. Obviously, she was like, she didn't expect it to be that fast or so random. She described it as, it was almost as if God was right there waiting, just waiting for her to ask. And as soon as she did, bam, He gives her an assignment. For a split second, Jennisa questioned it. She thought to herself, okay, did I just imagine that? That's very weird. But she quickly corrected herself. And she told herself how she got through that in her mind. She said, look, what do I have to lose, right? Just do what I feel like He told me to do. So Jennisa takes the exit. It was very soon Jennisa realized she was in an unfamiliar part of town. She did not know it at all. The fire hydrants and transformer boxes and fences, they were all spray painted and graffitied all over the place. Not to mention, trash was piled up in the gutters all along the streets. It was terrible. In addition, she described all the houses that she was passing. They looked like vacant skeletons. You know, people hadn't lived there in years, is the way she described. Jennisa was very uncomfortable, but she carried on. She came upon the first grocery store she saw. She parks, goes in, and buys a gallon of milk. And as she's walking back out in the parking lot, she's opening up her car door. She says she then hears a voice say, take the milk to the house with the lights on. Well, Jenisa's looking down the street and she's, going slowly, and she sees one house. All the other houses were dark, but that one. So she drives to that one. When she pulls up to the curb, Jennisa says she sat there for a minute because she really didn't understand what to do next. She knew that was the only house that was lit up, but what now? She was so nervous. She said her heart was just pounding a mile a minute. Her thoughts in her mind began to race as she sat there. Thoughts such as, I'm gonna look crazy. God couldn't have really told me to do that, right? Plus, look around. It's dangerous. I should go. Those were the types of thoughts that were racing through her mind. But she took a deep breath, collected herself, and she thought, I asked to hear God's voice and instructions, so I gotta do it. Jennisa gets out with the gallon of milk and slowly walks up to the front porch. She can hear a baby screaming like crazy inside. She knocks, and an exhausted woman comes to the front door with baby in hand. Jennisa could tell that the woman had been crying. Her eyes were red. She was visibly upset. And in addition, the baby is still screaming like crazy. The woman looks down and sees that Jennisa is holding a gallon of milk. And suddenly, she starts bawling. Jennisa said that woman's cries were the cries of that of helpless relief. She immediately goes into conversation with Jennisa, and she tells her that she didn't have anything to feed her baby and she didn't know what she was going to do. And it was just moments prior to Jennisa pulling up that the woman had been praying to God, praying for something for her baby to eat. She looks at Jennisa and she says, and here you are, with tears just pouring down her eyes. Jennisa was then overcome with emotion. It was the wildest thing. Jennisa had never experienced something like, of this magnitude before. But Jennisa was so incredibly grateful that God used her to help this little family. She says it definitely required a lot of bravery and courage, but it was so worth it because the faith that she got back in return for her own life was well worth it. Today, years later, she looks back on that situation and she thinks about it often because it always gives her inspiration no matter what she's going through. And in addition, she says it challenges her to continue to listen for God's voice, to live generously, and to be his hands and feet. What a story. That is so random. I had to share it with you guys. That is such a miracle. I can't tell you, at least not one that comes top of mind, that I've ever experienced like that. Maybe I need to concentrate on listening more to what God's telling me to do. Because anyone, if you put yourself into that story, anyone would be scared to not look crazy, things like that, just like Jennisa. But look what happens when you obey God and you listen and you put those thoughts of, okay, who cares if somebody thinks I'm crazy? And you listen, what would that poor little baby have eaten if Jennisa decided, no, this looks too crazy. I'm gonna take the gallon of milk back home and use it. This story really got to me, really made me think. So I hope it did you as well. I hope it was a blessing to you guys. And thank you for watching. I'm going to see you guys for the next one.